Terry Petersen was born in 1944 in Anthon, Iowa, the son of Raymond and Fern Petersen. Terry had an older sister, Judy, and two younger brothers, Tom and Tim. Terry didn't have to put a lot of thought into becoming a fourth-generation cattle feeder, following in the footsteps of great-grandpa Ben Petersen, Grandpa Pete Petersen, and his dad. Terry liked raising cattle and farming since he was a little boy, so he naturally thought it was what he should do. Terry was raised on a farm where they fed mostly Hereford cattle and grew corn, oats, and alfalfa. At the age of 5, he would help do chores for an hour or two before school. This was also the age where he fell in love with his first horse, Duke. Terry would climb into Duke's back while Duke was eating in the barn. When Terry began catechism, he would ride Duke 3.5 miles to church at Midway every Saturday. This went on for 2 years, never missing a class. Terry loved to ride horses. His dad originally fed cattle with a team of horses. Terry would ride on the team while his dad would scoop feed. At age 10, Dad bought him his very own horse that came in with a load of Montana cattle. The cattle used to come in from Montana by train, mostly to the stockyards in Sioux City and sometimes right in Anthon. The Petersen family would jump the cattle from the train cars into stock trucks to haul home. Terry bought his first calf around 9 years old. Then at about 17, he went to the stockyards and bought his first pen of 40 head of cattle for his dad. More responsibility came when Raymond and Fern went to vacation in Hawaii. They left Terry at home to be in charge for an entire week. At the time, they had around 700 head of really fat cattle. A local farmer buyer named Ray Shibley stopped by and offered to buy some of the cattle. He told Terry they were really fat and the market was about to top out. Grandpa Pete was there at the time as well, so Terry asked for his grandpa's advice. Pete left the decision to Terry, telling him that his dad had left him in charge. Terry's dad often sold his cattle in Chicago to some guy who came up from New Jersey. This time, Terry made the decision to sell about half of the fat cattle, 300 to 400 head, to a local cattle buyer. When Raymond called home to check in, Terry told him what he had done. Raymond blew his top. He was yelling so loudly, Terry thought he might have laid down the phone and still heard his dad yelling all the way from Hawaii. Ironically, that ended up being the highest priced cattle they sold all year. In the summer, his dad did finally apologize for chewing him out. He even took Terry to Sears and Roebuck in Sioux City and bought him a 3-piece suit for $60. Terry wore that very suit when he graduated from high school. In 1965, Terry joined the Army National Guard. The following year, he married the love of his life, Mary Lou Kruger. He continued to farm with his family for a year until marriage, until he was called to service in Vietnam in 1968. He had to leave for Fort Carson, Colorado right away, then left for Vietnam in January 1969. He was a track mechanic for the Army and went out on a 13-man patrols in the brush every other week. This lasted for 9 months, until he was released to return home to the family farm in September that same year. Terry continued to farm with his dad while he and Mary Lou started their family. Terry and Mary Lou had 3 children, Bart, Tracy, and Melanie. They eventually moved to the home place in 1973. Terry had a capacity to feed 1,000 head of cattle on the home place. He continued to feed Herefords, some Angus, as well as farming the land. Merlin Growth came to help Terry Petersen in the mid-70s. He helped Marlin get his cattle started. Marlin is still grateful for Terry's influence back then. In the mid-1980s, Terry became involved in the Northwest Iowa Pony Chuck Wagon Association. As an outrider for Joe King, his second year in Basil Bloom offered Terry the opportunity to go out on his own driving Bloom's wagon and horses. The family fun continued through 1992, those last 2 years racing at the ranch in Clinton, Arkansas. The kids all have a lot of neat memories growing up on the farm with Terry.
Sometimes Dad would join us kids when we were into the corn pile in the trench silo. We'd go to the top of the silo, run and jump into the corn. Of course, Mom didn't want us in there. We did it anyway. Dad let us by with the shenanigans Mom naturally said no to. A teenage friend and I liked to climb the upright silos. We got in trouble when Mom found out, but Dad told us if we were going to do it, we'd have to get up early and do it before she got up. Sometimes Dad would do his version of an Indian rain dance for me. Dad's biggest thing was that When he turned the radio up to listen to the markets, we were not allowed to talk. We loved to go to the stockyards with Dad and to the sales at Lyle and Chapman. He would never turn us down.
After his son Bart took up roping in the 90s, Terry quickly caught the bug and still can be found roping and penning weekly at the Red Barn in Mobile with the Tri-State Team Ropers. He also provides the roping cattle for the group. I guess you would have to call this his retirement plan. Although he does still farm a little, he also enjoys going to Oklahoma City every March to the timed events at the Lazy E Arena, Keith Miller typically serving as his wingman.
I think in life most of us try to do the right thing, and we feel good when we help out our friends and neighbors. That really is the way of a cattleman. But something that is really remarkable is when we open our lives to make such a profound difference in someone else's life that it lights the way for their entire future. Terry has a way of making that kind of a difference in the lives of other people. I think several names might come to surface when people think about Terry and those he has made an influence on. Marty Voss was one person whose life was majorly impacted by Terry, often considered Terry's fourth child. Terry Petersen stepped up to fill the all-important father role for Marty when he was just entering his teen years. Terry didn't take on the responsibility and the burden we all know it can be to raise a teenager because he had to. It was just the kind of person that Terry is. He stuck it out and gave Marty many experiences with cattle and rodeo. Experiences which eventually led to him going to college, to raising cattle, and maybe most importantly, Terry taught Marty what it was to be a dad. A dad who is now teaching his children to be cattlemen as well. Terry was a devoted son to his parents, visiting his mom in town regularly until she passed away a few years ago. There is no doubt he is a devoted father and grandfather to 9, 12 with Marty's kids. Their house is a revolving door of children and grandchildren spending time on the farm. He is a devoted mentor and friend, with regulars enjoying visits and maybe a little cribbage at the Petersen kitchen table. And without question, he is a devoted cowboy. I don't picture Terry ever slowing down. He works hard and plays hard, and like clockwork, he'll be up and at her like a good rooster crows right on time every morning. Terry has been a leader in the industry. He was involved in the County Cattlemen's Association before the age of 20. He served on the board for about 10 years, serving as both vice president and president in that time. As a 50-year member of this great organization, and one who has made a positive difference in the lives of many a cattleman in this room this evening, we are proud to honor you, Terry Petersen, with this prestigious award. You are our 2015 Honorary Woodbury County Cattleman. Congratulations.